Good afternoon. It's Thursday, July 26. I'm Herman Green with your midday news. A special welcome if you're watching online at onespotmedia.com. The same channels used to traffic guns and drugs into the country is now being used to traffic people. That declaration from Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang. According to Dr. Chang, human trafficking is becoming deep-rooted in Jamaica, which is why he's calling on every Jamaican to join the fight in combating the illicit trade, which he describes as modern-day slavery.
The clandestine nature of this crime demands that every single Jamaican assume the responsibility to join the fight to stop traffickers in their tracks. It is impractical to think that a government alone response will be effective, as the main forms of human trafficking crimes in Jamaica relate to sexual exploitation and forced labor.
He pointed out that human trafficking is taking place in dozens of bars, private hotels, and massage parlors island-wide. Dr. Chang was speaking on Wednesday at Jamaica's first Human Trafficking International Conference in Trelawney. An investigation is underway at the Black River Police Lockup, which is said to be the base of operation for an extortion ring. TVJ News understands that during a recent search of the cell block, several cellular phones, sharp implements, ganja and other contraband were found. According to a police source, the extortion started some time ago when a prisoner was transferred from Westmoreland to St. Elizabeth, where he was wanted for a number of crimes. The source outlined that the detainee would demand other inmates to call family members and tell them to send cell phone credit, money and other contraband. Now, if the demands were not met, the detainees would be physically abused. This was borne out when the inmate appeared at the parish court in Santa Cruz in May. It was also revealed that a team from the Police Inspectorate Division recently visited St. Elizabeth to carry out investigations in the reported extortion ring. Efforts to get a comment from the top brass of the St. Elizabeth Police have so far been unsuccessful. The man who reportedly used a chainsaw to cut another man on the abdomen in St. Thomas nearly 2 weeks ago has been charged. Shaquem Marshall was fined $150,000 with sureties when he appeared at the Morant Bay Resident Magistrates Court on Wednesday. He is to return to court on September 26. The cousin of the injured man, Wayne Miller, was also charged. According to police reports, on July 10, Mr. Miller used his chainsaw to injure the man during a dispute. Mr. Marshall, who is the cousin of the injured man, reportedly used a chainsaw to inflict a wound to Mr. Miller's shoulder. Mr. Miller and the injured man were taken to hospital. Mr. Marshall and Mr. Miller were later arrested. Students at the Lite Primary School in St. James may return to school in September to find that they no longer have computers in their computer room. Burglars broke into the school on Tuesday night and stole computers and other equipment used for the school's technology program. Principal Anthony Murray says he was shaken by the theft. He recounts his loss as the robberies are becoming a regular occurrence.
The door to the principal office was cut using what I assume is a steel cutter, and on my investigation I realized that the computer in the office, multimedia projector and PA system was missing, and the entire office was ransacked. And for the investigation, we realized that the keys in the office were removed and the computer lab was also broken into, and 8 computers were taken. 8 HP computers were taken from the lab. This is the second break-in we have in the last 2 weeks. 4 machines were stolen over 2 weeks ago. And to lose 8 more, the entire lab, the entire technological program at the school is now compromised, because the tools that we would use to teach our students are no longer here.
Now, Mr. Murray has a message for persons who may have knowledge of the robbery.
I'm appealing to society, I'm appealing to the community to please, if you know any information as relates to these information, to these machines, or the person who might have been involved, asking you to provide information to the Anchovy or Freeport police, because we need to get back these machines for school September.
Reactions have started to come in following yesterday's announcement by the government that user fees at public health facilities across Jamaica are to go up on August 1. The details in this report.
The parliamentary opposition says this is a sign that the no-user fee policy is under pressure. Although the government has a policy in place at health facilities, some persons are still required to pay. These include non-residents, private patients, and patients with health insurance. Effective next Wednesday, these persons will be required to pay $3,000 for general medical visits, up from $1,500. Visits to specialty clinics will move from $3,500 to $7,500, while the charge for being admitted to the intensive care unit will be increased from $5,000 to $10,600 per day. Opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Dayton Campbell, in commenting on the upcoming increase, says it cannot be business as usual as far as free health care is concerned.
The minister, when he was at Capri, did a study which stated that free health care as is cannot work. I am wondering what is causing him not to have the will to go ahead and change the policy. What needs to happen is that there needs to be a tiered policy in place where those who can afford to pay should pay something, those who are average should pay a part of, and those who can't pay should have access to the care free. But any system that keeps in place where you just offer it free, irrespective of the means of an individual, it is going to increase the inequality in the system.
Dr. Campbell says it's, however, time for a major review of the cost of health care in Jamaica.
How do we provide universal access to health care, irrespective of your means? And you put that tiered system in place now to say those who can't afford, they will go for free. And you could use some simple things, you can use the means test that you do for PASS program. You could look at those with disability, you could look at elder, you could look at children, and then you look at those persons who can afford to pay. So what can they afford to pay? This person can afford to pay 50%, this person can afford to pay the full amount. You also need to look at your insured. I've maintained since I was at JMD for a short time in 2011 that the only persons that benefit from this insurance thing at present are the insurance companies.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Negotiations for a new wage deal for workers at the Bank of Jamaica have hit a snag. During another round of talks yesterday, the bank and the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, which represents the workers, remained at loggerheads. President General of the union, Senator Cavan Gill, blamed the bank and the Finance Ministry for the negotiations stalling.
Regarding how it intends to treat the comparative market survey, which is an issue surrounding the negotiations. The bank remains inflexible also with regards to their offers and proposals that were made at recent meetings. So the union will meet with their members on Friday of this week to determine the way forward.
Water mismanagement, that, according to the Water Resources Authority, is at the core of Jamaica's water shortage problem. The entity's deputy managing director, who was a guest on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program this morning, says Jamaica has all the water we need. So why does a dry period affect the water supply almost every year? TVJ's O'Shane Masters has that story.
The ongoing dry spell is affecting several parishes. The government says plans are in place for the Drought Mitigation Committee to meet to find ways to address the problem. But this initiative will only yield short-term fixes, and if a drought occurs again next year, the same issues will return. That's why Deputy Managing Director for the Water Resources Authority, Peter Clark, has outlined suggestions to address the water problem.
We have very reliable water, for instance, with Rio Bueno. That is a river that, in the dry times like now, it doesn't fall as much as, for instance, Hope River. If you go to Hope River now, you hardly see any water. So Hope River reacts a lot more to the wet and dry season. And this is largely because of where the Hope River is, in the mountains, in the volcanics, in the hard rocks where water hardly gets to soak in. While the Rio Bueno is coming out of the cockpits. You don't see any rivers in the cockpits because all the rain is soaking in through the cracks and fissures in the limestone. But then it now gets a chance to seep out, so it becomes more consistent. So for instance, we have water there in the Rio Bueno, we have water in the Black River.
Mr. Clark said Jamaica has enough water to supply the country and suggested that the urban water supply system needs improvement.
The big plan, the big picture is to look at where the water is and move that water to where it's needed. So it's what we call a trans-basin movement of water. So if you have a lot, and we've done a little bit of that, for instance, with the with what we've done with the Yalas River to move some into Kingston. So we're putting 22 million gallons more a day into Kingston.
He pointed out that the water from the surface that is being accessed is less than half of our natural water supply. He says most of the island's water, which is not being accessed, is underground.
When you look at all the rivers that are running, think of them, the Rio Grande and the Rio Bueno and Rio Cobre and all of these big rivers. All of those are probably just 30% or less that goes to sea every day as a potential than what actually exists on the ground.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
There was a standoff between the Transport Authority and motorists in Santa Cruz this morning. A team from the Transport Authority, along with members of the police, started an operation to seize cars suspected to be illegal taxis. A grey Toyota motor car was being confiscated when the driver of the vehicle went under the car to prevent the transport officers from taking it. This led to a 30-minute standoff, after which the man was pepper sprayed. The man later came out from under the car and was taken into custody. During a Transport Sector Forum consultation in Kingston last month, Transport Minister Robert Montague warned that vehicles used illegally as buses and taxis will be seized. And we go down to international stories. Senators grilled Secretary of State Mike Pompeo today about Russia and North Korea. One hot topic, President Trump's one-on-one meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which no one witnessed except translators. The details from the CNN.
No one knows exactly what President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin talked about in their one-on-one meeting in Helsinki.
We've heard that some agreements were reached, but as of yet have little idea what those might be.
Did he tell you whether or not what happened in those 2 hours?
Yes, Senator. The predicate of your question implied some notion that there was something improper about having a one-on-one meeting. I completely disagree with the premise of your question.
I didn't ask you a predicate. I asked you a simple question. I hope we're going to get through it. Did he tell you what transpired in the 2-hour meeting?
I've had a number of conversations with President Trump about what transpired in the meeting.
But he would not go into details about what was said, only confirming to senators that there's no commitment to change U.S. policies. And he added a harsh declaration today.
I want to assure this committee that the United States does not and will not recognize the Kremlin's purported annexation of Crimea.
Senators said they're also somewhat in the dark about Trump's Singapore meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
What real commitments were made?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the private commitments that have been shared.
Pompeo says the U.S. is tracking the disassembling of a North Korean missile engine test site. But some senators said there's still no way to verify what they're doing.
I am afraid that at this point, the United States, the Trump administration, is being taken for a ride.
Fear not, Senator. Fear not.
We go on to sports. President of the Jamaica Chess Federation, Ian Wilkinson, says he will be offering himself as a candidate for vice president in the upcoming elections for the World Chess Federation. Denise Walters has the story.
With Jamaica's stature growing on the international chess stage as many players achieve world rankings, long-serving president of the Jamaica Chess Federation, JCF, Ian Wilkinson, says the time is right to take things a step further. And as such, he will be presenting himself as one of the vice presidential candidates in the upcoming World Chess Federation FIDE election in just over 3 months.
We in Jamaica, we have discussed it internally. Going to have further discussions with my executive governing council so that we can determine which of the candidates we are going to support. We have already been approached by all three. We have had preliminary discussions with all three. And we have an idea of the person we'd like to support, but we're not going to disclose that right now.
Wilkinson will be throwing his hat in the ring with some amount of experience, having previously served an 8-year term on the FIDE World Chess Court ending in 2014. He was the first black man to do so.
Back in Turin at the Congress in 2006, I was elected to the Ethics Commission, which is generally regarded as a World Chess Court. Matters of dispute are sent to that court. I had the privilege of serving with a number of other persons, including the chairman, Roberto Rivello, who's an Italian judge, and of course, Mr. Ralph Alt, who's a German judge, and a number of other persons, legal minds and so on. I was told I was the first person of African extraction to sit on the court.
Meanwhile, the World Chess Court recently suspended incumbent President Kirsan Ilumzhinov for 18 months for all activities related to chess, including contesting the upcoming elections. Ilumzhinov, who has been the president of FIDE from 1995, was sanctioned by the United States Department of Treasury and placed on a banned list for alleged financial dealings with Syria. He was asked to relinquish power to the Deputy President, Georgios Makropoulos. He declined, and his case was brought before the chess court, where he received the ban, which started July 13.
The allegation is that Mr. Kirsan Ilyumzhinov disobeyed the decrees from the presidential board and continued to act as president in defiance of those decrees, and consequently the board reported him to the Ethics Commission, and the Ethics Commission found him guilty.
The FIDE election is set to take place in Batumi, Georgia on October 3. For TVJ Sports, I am Denise Walters.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Herman Green. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.